How's it going, YouTube? This is Skul TCG, and I'm joined today by Swany and Cookie from the YouTube channel Swany Plays Games. How's it going, guys?
What's up?
Good. Thanks for having us.
All right. So, I won't lie, I was sort of inspired to do this video because of the video you guys made a few days ago, talking about how much EA sucks. So, what brought this up...
Happy to inspire.
What brought this up, basically the straw that broke the camel's back is Star Wars Battlefront 2. But there's tons of other areas where EA has been a less than good game company. And I thought that I would just get together with these two gentlemen and discuss that for you, to sort of raise awareness and to hopefully get a discussion, contribute to a discussion that's already been kickstarted, honestly, and to sort of spread it around and hopefully get the word out there to EA that maybe, just maybe, they'll hear us and start changing their practices. However much I doubt that'll happen.
I wish.
That was so, like I said, I was motivated to do this because I saw you guys' video just a few days ago on your channel of, well, you were just talking about, honestly, just, the video in question is the one where you were talking about EA featuring a clip from Star Wars Battlefront exploiting a glitch that's been well known and well documented in the game, and promoting it on their Twitter account and showing off like how much skill this player has.
Yeah, so basically doesn't even pay attention to their own games is what the problem is. And if you're going to be a massive company like this and your job is to sell video games, that the people that run the Twitters games, and I think it goes kind of hand in hand. Like, that's kind of business. Like, for example, if I wanted to sell something, like say I don't know, like I'm a car salesman and you want to buy a car, know nothing about that car, I'm obviously going to do a pretty bad job of selling you that car. But if Cookie, on the other hand, knows all about that car, he's obviously going to do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, it's pathetic because it just shows you just how out of touch EA seems to be with the Battlefront 2 community. Because if they paid any attention to the Battlefront 2 community, it's extremely obvious that this glitch is out there. I mean, everybody's talking about it, everybody's asking for a fix, and at least obviously the EA Star Wars Twitter has no idea, apparently, because you don't feature somebody as really good because they're exploiting a glitch that everybody knows about. So it's just completely out of touch. And for I think it was more than 24 hours. So it's not like it was one of those like oopsie and they got rid of it after an hour. It was out there for a long time, and they still apparently had no idea that this was a problem.
Yeah, and you guys pointed out there wasn't a single comment on that tweet. There wasn't a single person who said, "Oh, this is so good." It was practically every person saying either, "We know this is a glitch, you guys are idiots," or "Fix your game," in a completely unrelated way. Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's pretty obvious it's gotten to the point now where it's, at best, a laughingstock. No one really enjoys the game, at least not as much as it really should be enjoyed. You guys play it to death on your channel all the time, and I've, in my case, I loved the first Battlefront. It was a really fun game. I got to level 100 on, like, 3 platforms. All 3 platforms it was released on. So wow. I played the heck out of that game. I loved it. Mm-hmm. The beta for Battlefront 2, it took me, like, 5 hours to get used to the play style that is required to play it. And once I finally got the game, I played it for a few days and just realized I was not having fun with it. And I kind of feel like it's partly my fault because I'm just not that good at this game. If people watching this footage will see that, obviously. But it's also, the game is just designed in such a way that you can only be good if, well, I mean, this is the biggest reason why people didn't like the game in the first place. It's pay to win. with the microtransactions, loot boxes, and stuff that they originally planned to put in the game, and that they yanked just before launch. In fact, you guys, I know Swany in particular, I don't know about Cookie, but I know you bought $100 worth of loot boxes with your early access of the game, and you hardly got anything at all. And then launch day, all those boxes are gone, and it takes forever to progress in the game, to just grind to get boxes, to hope that the random number generator gives you something that you could use. And
yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but like I spent that money, and I have way more hours than most people that play this game put into Battlefront. So it just goes to show that even spending $100 plus playtime, and I'm not even close to having everything unlocked yet. Like I haven't, like there's still like the Starfighter assault stuff, and I haven't even touched any of the ships. Like I have a few purples for almost every hero, but like there's still, I would have to like double or triple my amount of playtime to get everything. So you would have to spend at least probably close to like $1,000 for you to get everything unlocked if the microtransactions were still in the game, because it basically, Darth Vader was like 60,000 credits or something at launch, and I spent basically all that money towards getting Darth Vader. Getting screwed over because I mean, Darth Vader ended up being cheaper, so I kind of missed out there. But yeah, so their whole system is based around, and even if that pay-to-win system was in check and like nobody complained and we would have had that original system, I mean, you would have had to spend so much money to see any advantage from that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a broken system from the start, and it's just gotten worse because ever since they obviously got rid of microtransactions, now it's even harder. It was a system built for, I guess, the microtransactions, but it doesn't really.
Yeah, I mean, even now, even now, it's obvious that the game was built from the ground up, revolving around these microtransactions. Because now that they're gone, it's pretty much impossible to play the game in a progressive way, getting achievements of any kind towards leveling up or getting better traits or powering up your characters and stuff. It's just obvious that they really, really wanted for this to be a microtransaction game. And to be fair, it's not the first game that's ever done that, but it's the first that's tried to do it on this scale. There's plenty other games out there, even now, that have microtransactions in the form of loot boxes. The biggest one that comes to mind is Overwatch. I mean, I admit, I play Overwatch all the time. I love that game, and I'm happy to spend a few dollars every now and then on loot boxes. But the biggest difference is, one, Overwatch is a fun game, and it's easy to pick up. It's easy to try out all the different characters. You're only in a match for a few minutes at a time, and win or lose, you have a fun time. And the second is that the loot boxes are only for cosmetics. They give you skins for the characters, they give you voice lines for the characters, they give you player icons. That's basically it. It's not like you're locked behind a paywall and the better players are better because they have spent enormous amounts of money. The better players are better because they have spent time in the game and they have a, dare I say, a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. See, I don't think, it's not that gamers are microtransactions. Like, I'm okay with some microtransactions. Like, I was impressed with the Assassin's Creed that came out, so I spent a little bit extra money because I felt that the developers made a good enough game that I was having so much fun that I was like, all right, I'll spend $5 and get a few cosmetics. It's like, I'm okay with those. And for, like, let's say Overwatch, for example, if they got rid of those loot crates, I can play at all. Like, it wouldn't, people wouldn't start not playing the game like they are with Battlefront.
You're not supposed to touch that part of the game, because if you ever allow the ability to pay and get better, which is obviously what pay to win means, then you're essentially kind of breaking one of the golden rules of video games, that you have to spend $60 for. You should never have to pay extra money just to get better at the game, which is a golden rule that Star Wars Battlefront 2 broke. And even though it just was a poorly put together system, and they paid very, very dearly for it. So dearly, I don't know if they're ever going to actually come back from it. They've got so much bad PR for that.
I mean, their PR was horrible. I think Battlefront will be in history books as, but for all the wrong reasons. Like when we look back at video games, like we hear E.T. and we instantly think of the 1983 video game crash. We're going to think of Battlefront and instantly think of that time EA royally screwed over every single person who's ever loved a video game. And the thing is that this hasn't gotten better at all. Like, they were committed all the way up until launch to keep those microtransactions and to just force it down players' throats. It was only when Disney told them, hey, that's not okay, don't do that, that they finally relented. And they told their shareholders, too, that they will be coming back. So it was only ever temporary turning them off. It's pretty obvious to me that Disney is thinking about pulling their Star Wars license from EA, and I think at this point EA knows that's going to happen, so they're just going to squeeze as much money as possible out of this before it's gone. But it's so frustrating to me as a Star Wars fan in the first place, and as a video game fan in general, just to see this, because if this is the future of video games, I'm not sure I want a part of it, where you buy a $60 game, and not only, like we've had this problem for years already, where you buy a $60 game, and the DLC is where all the nice, fluffy content is. You have to pay extra for that. It happened with the first Battlefront as well. But I'd hate to pay $60 and then not only have that, but then also have the skills of your characters locked behind a paywall as well. And eventually that $60 turns into $100, $200, $500, $1,000, and you still are not a powerful player just because it's behind loot boxes instead of you buy this specific ability and that's that.
Yeah. I think the best way to do microtransactions is kind of like, I keep bringing up this Assassin's Creed game, but they have it so you can spend money to get next, but you can also unlock them in game. So you can either grind out to get this cool stuff, or you could spend $5 and you can unlock it faster. That way, for those people that can't afford these cool things that are locked behind a paywall, you could just hours and unlock it the normal way. I think that's a good way to do microtransactions. That way, have all this extra money can actually enjoy the game the same way that people that do have more money do.
I think a quick comparison would be like Skyrim on the Nintendo Switch. There was a fun costume that you could do by scanning in a Link amiibo. But if you didn't have the Link amiibo, which costs like $13 if you can find one in a store, there was still a way to find it in the game. So something like that.
That's the good news about this whole situation is EA didn't get away with it. I mean, the bad news is it ruined a potentially great game, but on the good side is they didn't get away with it. They lost tons of money. They didn't make as much as they were supposed to, and it really ended up killing the game, which is the bad news. Because, I mean, when it first came out, me and Swany, for the most part, really enjoyed the game. There were issues with it, obviously, but the game itself, we really enjoyed as lifetime Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
And especially if they kept adding content, it could have been really, really good, but you know, they killed it with a very stupid system, or at least I assume they killed it. I mean, unless they pull off a big recovery or something. But it's a bittersweet moment because it's sad because it was a great game, but it's great because the fans kind of rebelled against the system, and hopefully that means we won't get it in the future.
This is a good lesson for other video game companies and other games in the future, as they see how did this game, and then they're like, whoa, I'm just going to completely avoid pay to win because I don't want that mess.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many tangents we can go on here. The first thing I'll say is, first and foremost, I don't hate DICE at all. I mean, DICE is the one who basically programmed this game, so they're the ones who made all the designs and the mechanics and stuff. The framework is there. The pieces are all there, and they did a great job making this game. It's a gorgeous looking game. It looks and feels like Star Wars. I hate EA because they basically said, we're making this a microtransaction heavy game, and whatever you guys do at DICE, fine, but just make sure that we can squeeze money out of it when it's implemented.
Yeah, and I mean, you were talking about how at the beginning how EA is bad overall, not just with this game, but me and Swany know that extremely well. We have tons of EA games. I've been playing EA Sports since like 2000. I've been playing those games forever.
I have. Yeah, way back in the early '90s, they were a much better company. I think we can all agree on that. But yeah. I'm thinking like the thing with Battlefront 2 is like you said. Hopefully, this is a warning to other companies not to pull the same stuff. It's telling when the game sold 7 million units by the end of the year, so basically within a month, and EA had a loss on it because it hadn't sold enough. That's telling. That means either they spent way too much money on the game, or they had made it with the intention of every single one of those 7 million units, basically every single person paying twice that in microtransactions. I'm sure part of it is just people refused to buy it after hearing there were microtransactions in the first place. I'm sure that's a big part of it. But 7 million at like $60, $70, $80 a piece, depending on which edition you get, that's like I don't know, 100, let's just say $150 million. If that's not enough to make your money back, then you got a problem. You know, that's more than most Hollywood blockbusters cost to make. So,
and there's indie games that just way smaller developers, like small dev teams, come up with, and they make a good game with a lot less money, and they make profit. So
yeah, I mean, like Cuphead. I mean, granted, that took 5 years, but it was made by just 3 people, I think. And
oh yeah, Cuphead's
Cuphead's amazing, and it doesn't cost extra money. You pay $40, $20, whatever it is, I forget, and you got the whole game. It's a hard game, but it's complete and it's fun. And it was made by 3 people.
They made profit.
Yeah, I don't know if EA did make any profit. I think they just didn't make as much as they were supposed to, or something like that. They had expectations of this game getting a certain amount of money, and they put extra resources in place. So I guess in that way, they might not have made their profit back.
And that's more telling of how they work as a company than how this game performed. I mean, we could bash this game all day long. It deserves all the bashing in the world at this point. I mean, some other things to touch on real quick on this game specifically is how uncommunicative they are in terms of updates and DLCs and stuff like that. Like, basically the only update we've gotten to it since launch was the Last Jedi DLC, and that wasn't exactly an update. It was programmed into the game at launch, and it was simply unlocked when The Last Jedi came out.
We haven't really gotten any DLC at all for this game, and it came out mid-November, and now it's mid-March.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I think even like, man, the first Battlefront, I know for a fact Jakku as a stage came out for everyone within 2 weeks of launch to promote The Force Awakens, and then it got the Outer Rim DLC by March at latest. So it had a full DLC by it had a full DLC by this point. I mean,
we at least knew it was coming.
Yeah, we knew it was coming. We knew what it was about. I mean, granted, Battlefront 1 had a whole slew of issues, and having DLC as its own separate thing was one of them, but at least it was there. At least they were telling us stuff. Here, it's like they aren't even telling us anything, and 2, they're not listening to us at all, because going back to that tweet, they were showing off a glitch like, hey, isn't this cool? And everyone's like, no, this is a glitch. We've been telling you about this for months.
And it took them a day to get rid of that tweet, so they obviously don't read the comments and listen to feedback, or they would have seen within the first 20 minutes that tweet was that they should have taken it down.
Yeah.
The whole idea of the communication, I mean, there's a couple different ways you could look at it, because there was a report, kind of a report, but it kind of been shown that they can't because of some quarterly report system they have. But even with that being said, like why they can't communicate certain things in certain time periods, you can't run a video game that way. You can't have especially when you sell yourself as a video game that's going to be updating a lot, which is what they did multiple times before this game came out. You can't say that and then have a system in place where you literally can't do that. And if that's been the problem all along, why are we only hearing about that in the middle of March from a developer who's on his way out of EA?
Yeah.
That's the way we find out that you can't give us news in a timely manner. It's just so poorly done in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Any news is from developers' Twitters.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they're supposed to be doing that. I almost feel like they're doing it just to give us something because they feel bad.
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of hard to
it's
tell.
pretty obvious. Like, I'm sure the devs play this game because that's their job, and I'm sure they love this game. I'm sure that the higher-ups do not, though. They just make the decisions and say, make it so. The game is supposed to be getting updates constantly. That's one reason why EA decided to go this route instead of the route Disney originally wanted them to go when they gave them the license. Disney's original plan was, hey, EA owns a lot of smaller game companies. We can give the license to EA so EA can make these big AAA Star Wars titles every few years, but the smaller companies can make the smaller titles like every so often, like way more often than every 2 years. And EA took that plan and ripped it up and said, nope, we're going to do this instead. And as a result, we've only gotten 3 Star Wars games since EA got the license. One of them is LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens, which isn't even from EA.
Oh.
And the other 2 are Battlefront and Battlefront 2. Battlefront 1 got updates for a year, and then it was basically dead while they were hyping up Battlefront 2. And Battlefront 2 was almost dead on arrival, and it looks like EA's practically given up on this until they can force the microtransactions back and then milk it for all it's worth.
I think the problem now is that they already promised everybody free DLC, so there's no season pass. So they could technically just not give us anything because nobody paid for. And without these microtransactions, they don't really have an incentive to make us this really crazy that everybody's asking for. Like, why are they going to give us like 4 or 5 new heroes if nobody's paying for it? And EA is pretty greedy, so that might be why it's taken them so long to give us stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the point about making all the different studios EA has, I mean, I assume that was the main reason Disney wanted EA to have it at all, was so they could make a ton of Star Wars games, because they had so many different studios like Visceral, Respawn, DICE, and so many others. Of course, they don't have Visceral anymore because it doesn't exist now.
Yeah, rip.
But they have so many different studios they could use to make more Star Wars games, and only got 2, and they've both been failures as far as PR.
Yeah,
it's a really, really bad look for EA, and I don't know how much more Disney's going to take or how much more they're willing to.
They should have went the
put into
Call
this.
of Duty route. Like, they should have had a Star Wars game year after year after year after year to make as much money as possible.
they really should have. And I think, like, I can see people saying, like, no, that's too much, but it's better than this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I'll take a Star Wars game every year.
I'll take a mediocre Star Wars game every year than 2 flops of Star Wars games. Well, okay, I shouldn't say flops. The first Battlefront, you know, it was pretty shallow on release, but by the time it was over, it was a pretty full game. Like I said, I loved it. I played it so much. This one, it's a flop. There's no way around it. It's a flop. So,
which is a shame
it is.
For us.
I mean, it's a
it's
a flop in more senses of the word than just a financial flop. I mean, if you guys, you know, are paying attention to this video, if you're watching it, then you'll see so many graphical glitches and gameplay glitches, like all sorts of stuff that just should not be in a game that cost this much to make and took this long to make, and EA is just ignoring it because, oh, boo-hoo, we're not allowed to put in microtransactions in this game, so we're just gonna pretend it doesn't exist.
We're not sure what they're doing. We're not sure what their problem is. I mean, they have, and again, this goes back to the communication issue. If there's something going on, it's okay to tell your fans, because otherwise they're going to make up their own stuff, and their own stuff's probably going to be worse than what's actually going on. They're just, so we're going to go to the worst case scenario, which is they've given up. And that's what most of the community has gone to. And this is, by the way, the community that them through the whole pay-to-win microtransaction thing and still enjoys the game and still cares about the game. And you're killing that community. So you can't be quiet like this. It's terrible for the system they're in, especially after the horrible release.
Yeah, I mean, if EA really, really wanted to, they could save this game. It's possible. They could save it. They could have had it saved by now. They could have said, okay, microtransactions are turned off. What are we going to do to save image? Let's do it, and let's do it now. Instead, if they're saying that at all, they're taking their sweet time doing it, which is the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, this progression system that they're putting off for months and months and months is to try to get new people that are playing the game to have fun.
What new people?
Exactly, like they're trying to bring in new people with this progression system, but I don't know who's going to play it, because all the current players are going to tell people to avoid it because we're so angry at the game. I don't get it.
I mean, it's even gotten to the point now where the people, like the game changers who were invited out to San Francisco before the game launched to play it, they're staying as far away from this as possible because they don't care about it. And to be fair to them, when they went to San Francisco, all that stuff was unlocked for them, and they were not told that anything was behind a paywall. They didn't know that microtransactions were a thing planned for this game. They played a game that was good. They did not play the same game that we got.
A lot of problems that all sort of just funnel together to make Battlefront 2.
I mean, well, it's hard to argue against a sense of accomplishment that you would get. But, I mean, aside from Battlefront 2, I mean, there's plenty more that EA is just screwing over right now. I thought I would just bring up this. You know the Nintendo Switch? You know how many games EA has made for it? Just take a wild guess.
I don't know.
One. They made one game for the Switch so far. FIFA 18. They made just about the poorest excuse of a port they could. They didn't even try to optimize it. They took out the story mode and they put it on the Switch and said, okay, let's see how this sells. A week later, it did not meet their goal, and they said, okay, guess we're not going to support the Switch.
That sounds like an EA thing.
That's EA. That's EA through and through. I mean, to be fair, it wasn't a bad port of the game. It's just, you could tell that they didn't optimize it, and they took shortcuts, and they just put it out there just to see if there was support. There wasn't, so they quit.
They shortcut everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's been EA's motto for the last, 5-6 years. I mean, you look at SimCity was a broken game. Battlefield 4 was a broken game. The Sims 4 was not fully done when they released it. All the EA sports games are basically the same thing year after year now, even to the point, I know sports games are always kind of the same, but at least back in the 2000s, there would be at least one big new game mode or one big new update or something really, really interesting that's new. Now it's just recycled year after year, so they're not even putting anything new or interesting in them at all. Mass Effect Andromeda was a broken game. They threw it out there. It's been a really bad run for EA. They have just completely given up on being decent.
Yeah, EA.
Even Titanfall 2 was released at a horrible time.
I forgot about Titanfall 2.
It was a great game
themselves. But
they killed it because they released it right at the same time as Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty, I think it was Infinite Warfare. It's a horrible idea. You can't take on the two biggest shooters at the same time. And just EA has really had a rough run.
I honestly, I don't know how anyone supports them now. I mean, I joke all the time with my friends. I would love to go to E3 this year just to go to the EA panel and boo the entire time nonstop. I want to do that so bad.
I always watch that and I'm thinking, why don't boo?
Well, they did last year, actually. Well, not at the EA panel, but at the Battlefront panel. Not for the right reasons. At the very end of it, they spent the whole panel promoting the story mode. And remember when that was actually a big thing, something that we were actually excited for because the first one was missing it?
Yeah.
So they put together something, probably put most of their budget into the single player, and then put it out there. You finish it in 8 hours, and there's no replay value. But whatever. So they were showing off that at the panel, and then at the very end they said, "Oh, by the way, we have a pre-order bonus," and that was where the booze came from.
Pre-order bonus.
Yeah, I forget what the pre-order bonus even was. Whatever it was, I have it and I never use it. So
I think it was like
two epics. It was 2 epics. I think there was and the Ray and Kylo.
Oh yeah, that was it.
Which a lot of people didn't get because it glitched.
Yeah, like
which is way more DLC than we've gotten.
You know what the stupidest thing about this game is? I just want Ray to say that was lucky, but you can only get that from a hero loot box. I've spent every credit I have on hero loot boxes, and I not only haven't gotten that, I haven't gotten a single thing from Ray as far as voice lines go.
Doesn't matter because the emotes for heroes still don't work.
Yeah, so DICE devs have made it so clear, like for the heavy glitch, the heavy exploding killing hero glitch, they've made it clear you can just turn that off with like a simple button on their end, but they're not allowed to for whatever reason. There's so many little things that they could fix, but EA's not letting them.
I don't know. I don't get why EA or Disney or whoever it is would be like, no, you're not allowed to fix this game-breaking bug.
Yeah, like I'm sure. Like to be fair to Disney, they're not a gaming company. They probably gave it the license to EA with full confidence that EA had a handle on the situation. And it's obvious EA doesn't, so I'm sure Disney, as we speak, is looking into other companies right now that they can hand it to in full confidence, not having to worry about micromanaging.
We can hope.
We can hope.
I mean, that's all we can really do.
What other company I would trust right now? I think at the top of my list would either be Rockstar or Ubisoft, but even then, that's just, I don't know, man.
I'd crap myself if they gave it to Rockstar. I have no idea how that would
I don't know how, like,
they're all getting pretty greedy.
I don't know. Like, there's really no company I trust right now other than Nintendo, and there's no way they would get this license, so... this is just not a good time to be a video game fan.
We're in trouble on that part. A different one.
Own ways.
Yeah. So, I mean, Battlefront 2 has pretty much every problem in the book by this point. The only thing that EA seems to have done right, at least on their end, which is the absolute worst thing that we could hear, is telling their stockholders, don't worry, microtransactions are coming back.
Yeah, they still haven't, by the way. So I don't know why.
See, I wish their stockholders were gamers like us, because then their stock would plummet and they'd go out as a business. But no, they're not. They just care about their bottom dollar, and if they hear, don't worry, you're getting more money, then there go the stocks. They go up.
It doesn't make sense, though, because if these guys were gamers, they could utilize that and make more money.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's just...
they could sell it to us and we would buy it.
It's just obvious that EA is run by people who do not play video games. It's obvious. It's like the same as GameStop. They're run by people who don't play video games. It's the same as Xbox. Xbox was run by someone who was not a gamer. And then they fired him, replaced him with Phil Spencer, who's awesome, but that's a different story. There's just so many game companies that are run by people who are businessmen who don't play games. That's why I was saying Nintendo's basically the only company I trust these days as far as games go, because they're run by people who play games, so they understand the needs and wants of gamers.
Yeah, it's a messed up system at the moment, because I mean, video games have their own culture to them that people outside of it are not going to understand. It's just video games are just, it's a more complicated genre in some ways, because a person who loves video games, it's just a different way of thinking, and if you don't play video games yourself, it's incredibly difficult to understand. Anybody who's a video gamer talking to a person who's not a video gamer, you can tell there's an issue if they try to talk about video games.
I mean, as an example,
it just doesn't translate.
As an example of that, I was trying to tell my mom why I love The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild so much, and she's never played a video game in her life. So all these things I was telling her, like, this is so awesome, and it just feels so immersive. I could tell that she was trying to understand, but she doesn't play games. She doesn't get it, and that's what these guys are like. Like when we complain on the internet that we can't get customized skins for different characters, all we hear is no one wants to play as a pink Darth Vader. One, yeah we do. and two, like, that's just the mentality. Is so, like, it's like they're trying to figure out like we're children and they're trying to figure out what we want to eat for dinner. But we're not children. We're adults who play video games, and they're adults who just want to make money. That's what it boils down to.
And I don't think a lot of people have figured out that adults are still playing the video games. It's not like this isn't a kid's toy anymore.
No.
I mean, we're kind of getting into a new age where people in their 20s and 30s are still playing video games. I mean, I'm 25, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Oh, no, the demographic's high.
It is.
There's people in their 40s, 50s that play video games.
And there's more and more money being poured into games that are made only for adults. I mean, how many M-rated games are there a year that make it into the top 10 bestsellers? There's plenty. So, I mean, Battlefront is obviously not just for adults. It's obviously meant for kids too. But that's part of the reason why microtransactions are there, because they knew they could target them in a predatory means to try and get even more money out of them. But it's obvious, like, we're adults. We're smart enough to look at EA and say, you're making bad decisions. And I don't think they've quite understood that that's not just kids talking who don't know what they're talking about. This is people like our age that play games, in my case for a living, who look over to them and say, you are by far the worst game company in existence right now, and it's because of all these reasons we've listed, on top of many, many more.
Yeah. Oh, I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. Oh, well, now I remember one I was going to bring up. Like, it was just the fact that after what they've done with Battlefront, it makes me worried about what they're going to do in the future. Not just them, but other game companies, but especially them, because at the end of their EA panel last E3, they showed off the trailer for Anthem. And that looks like the kind of game that I would really, really, really love. And then I realized if they built this game from the ground up to revolve around microtransactions, they're probably doing the same with that, and that just kills my interest faster than anything else. It makes me very worried about, well, Anthem in particular, but other future games in general.
Yeah, I mean, I love Mass Effect, and they ruined that for me.
All right, what happened?
To who?
To whom? And your father. Sorry, my face is tired.
And then I loved Battlefront, and they ruined that for me too. So I'm losing all faith, and I don't think they're going to learn their lesson.
No, I don't think so either.
I loved EA Sports my whole life, and I'm losing faith. Or I've lost faith. I just buy it just because I guess I'm addicted now. and the Sims is kind of the same. I mean, it's just they own so much.
They do.
Like, we're so stuck with all. I mean, they own Battlefield, they own Titanfall, they own
Yeah.
everything.
Well, within a few months, hopefully they will no longer own Star Wars, but we'll see. But anyway, that's basically all I want to talk about, just how crap EA is. But is there anything you guys would like to add that we haven't talked about yet?
You know, I'd like to say that I think the reason that this whole Battlefront thing happened the way it was is because hardcore Star Wars fans, and we haven't had a Star Wars game that was good in so long, that I think if it was another game, play with this pay-to-win thing, because I mean, there's kind of pay-to-win in other games right now. Like Grand Theft Auto's kind of pay-to-win, and like it kind of gets away with it to an extent. Just, like Star Wars fans, like you just don't want to make Star Wars fans mad.
No.
Knew that it was a cash grab because people love Star Wars, and they tried to nickel and dime Star Wars fans, and I think that's where they made their mistake.
Yeah.
It's just don't.
No, if they had tried this with, like, if they had skipped this and started this with Anthem next year, then I think they probably could have gotten away with it. There would have been backlash, obviously, but not nearly to this extent. Not to the point where they'd have to think, okay, we got to stop because we're losing money.
And like I said earlier, it's if you want a positive to come out of this, the positive is hopefully other game studios and hopefully EA, but I don't think they will, learn from this situation and realize that there is a limit to what they can nickel and dime people, and it will literally cost you. And it cost EA. Hopefully, it costs EA the whole Star Wars franchise, but it can literally cost you if you nickel and dime too much. So hopefully, what comes out of this is that's the line and hopefully no other studios try to cross it.
Yeah, and I just want to end this by saying, if you got to the end of the video here, we didn't make it just to go in a circle about what we hate about EA. We made this mostly as a video just to get out there. This is not okay. None of what we talked about is okay, specifically for EA, but in gaming in general. And if somehow there's someone out there who sees this and can make a difference, then hopefully you've listened to this and it did not fall on deaf ears.
That's all we can hope.
That's all we can hope. That and the microtransactions come back, because I'm really looking forward to that sense of accomplishment that they were talking about.
Yeah.
Pride and
accomplishment.
In hand.
Most downvoted Reddit post in history right there. Well, anyway, I guess that just about covers it. Thanks, Swany and Cookie, for joining me for this discussion.
No problem.
And thanks, everyone, for watching. Here's my Patreon pledges for this month. See ya.
Hi everyone, this is Skul. If you liked the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. I also want to give a huge thanks to my Patreon pledgers for this month, whose names you can see on screen, along with some other videos of mine I think you might enjoy watching. That does it for now. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.